So our overflow, we've been
Mhm.
speaking this year so far on around how do we live in overflow,
Yeah.
and I can't believe it's March already, and it hasn't taken that long to reach a point where I found myself in a bit of a valley. And
Right.
it's been interesting because I thought, easy to talk about overflow when you're on a
Mm.
mountaintop,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and everything is going like you hope it would.
Mm.
And yet, we all know about life that there are seasons, and life has us navigating through the mountaintops and the valleys.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been reflecting quite a bit of late because I've been in a bit of a valley and thinking, gosh, overflow in the valley, you know,
Yeah.
um,
What does that look like? Mm.
a bit different. And
Mm.
yeah, we'd love to talk about that a bit
Mm.
today.
Well, I love that you have thought about that and you're willing to, have this conversation because you're so true in that the different seasons. And look, we can have a few different seasons in a moment. It feels like one minute we're, you know, um, but it is true. It is what does overflow look like when we are in a bit of a flat spot or we're feeling not great or things aren't going as planned and that's the reality of life. We have good days, we have bad days, and we have everything in between. Um, and I know it's not as flippant as the good days and the bad days. There are seasons that are a lot more difficult and and working out how do we still be authentic even when we sometimes don't even like what we're starting to see. Because I know that for me, sometimes, something goes tough with the kids and they'll say something to me and then I'll react, I won't respond. And
Yeah.
sometimes I don't like my reaction. And yet that is still part of the overflow, isn't it? So I love that you've brought this. And I actually had a conversation with somebody fairly recently. So I feel like I've got a little something that might be able to help in this space.
Oh, fantastic. And, as you were sharing there, it reminded me of a conversation, or no, actually, of an interview that I listened to years ago.
Okay.
And it was, I can't remember who was interviewing TD Jakes, but he was
Right.
sharing this visual that stuck with me for years. And he was said, like, sometimes life can be like a tube of toothpaste. And
Okay.
he says, when you're in a squeeze, like the
Yeah.
squeeze of life, and that's like the challenges and the valleys and the times that are uncomfortable
Mm.
and feel like a bit of a funk. He said, when you're
Mm.
squeezed,
Mm.
what is it that comes out of you? And I
Mm.
know we talk about being authentic and,
Mm.
part of in the overflow, and it's a bit like being squeezed. What is the overflow that comes out of us? And sometimes
Mm.
in our real authentic self, it isn't great what comes out.
Mm.
And for me, it's recognizing that it's so easy to end up for myself here in a cycle of despair, discouragement, self-doubt
Mm.
when I'm in
Yeah.
the valley, you know,
Yeah.
and that can quite easily spiral to not such helpful places. And so I
Yes.
could sort of come to you and go, but this is me being authentic. This is
Mm.
my, the truth of where I'm at. And there is a lot of self-doubt and there is a lot of despair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, if I also have a sense that the reality is that this is life, it's real, and yet I want to navigate through this in a way that is more wholesome than the self-doubt and despair.
Yeah. Because how
How do
helpful
I
is
get
that for
there?
you?
And
Yeah.
and remembering that every story has a different perspective, a different vantage point, a different way of looking at it, a different approach. So I think it's recognizing that, when we do realize that the overflow is not what we would like it to be like, that
Mm.
we can shift towards a different
Yeah.
approach. But the challenge is when you're in the valley and you're
Yeah.
in the self-doubt and despair,
Mm-hmm.
trying to even find your way
Yeah.
towards a different approach. or a different
Yeah.
way to think about things is not always easy.
No. And half the time it takes us, well, for me, it takes me a few days or so to even realize, hey, oh, Al, you're back to your old habits of being in self-doubt. Like it's not always something that we spot straight away. Sometimes
Oh,
we're lucky
yeah.
enough and we realize it. I mean, there's been times in my life where the old thoughts, the very unhelpful, unresourceful thoughts have started to swirl. And I've gone, oh, wait a minute. No, what else is also true right now? And I've been able to speak what also is true and correct my thinking. But sometimes it takes a bit of time. Sometimes it takes a few days. Sometimes it takes a conversation with you, Kath, or my dad or a friend or somebody else in my life, and go, oh, wait a second. I've been sitting in self-doubt for maybe a week now, and I've been sitting in despair. And and it's no wonder when we're in that space, we actually cannot access any creative thinking. We can't access any problem solving. Like the science of our brain doesn't let us think positive, good, helpful, resourceful thoughts when we're in that space. So, yeah,
Absolutely. And I think, I think so. I would love to workshop with you today. Like,
sure.
what can we do when we're in the space? And quite often, like for me, it's so easy to feel helpless and hopeless because often
Yeah.
it's external circumstances, right? So
Yeah.
you're in a space and you wanting something to shift externally out there or something to
Hmm.
happen out there and it's just not happening. And you
Yeah.
feel a little bit like, oh gosh, but remembering that the the hope that we do have is that you're right, there is always a choice around
Mm.
how we want to choose to navigate
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So any tips or strategies,
Yeah.
Elle?
Well, I love that we're having this conversation today because this small tool that I'd love to do my best to share came up fairly recently in a coaching conversation I had with a client. And like she was telling a story and in my mind, automatically I remembered, oh, I had this tool. I went through and used this tool years ago in my life. And I thought this would be a great place to have this conversation now. So it would have been great to go and find the name of the tool, find where it's from, all of those things. However, that's okay. What I would love for you to do, Kathryn, and for our listeners is to picture a triangle. Okay, it's got a triangle's got the three sides. In the middle is where we write words of how we want our overflow to be. So
Okay.
if we want it to be, so yeah, so in the middle, it's the state that we want to be in, the ideal state for us in a situation. Or, it could be, okay, the state or the overflow I want to be as a mum. It could be the state, the overflow that I want to be as a coach, um, in my workplace, in my career. You might use words, anyway. So it's the state, it's the overflow that we want to be in, right in the middle. At the bottom, it's our physiology. So if we write the word physiology along the bottom,
Hmm.
on one of the other lines of the triangle, we write the word focus. And on the other line, we write the word language.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you picture that? So we've got a
Yeah,
triad, we've got
absolutely.
a
Yeah.
triangle, the words that how we want to be, how we want to show up in a situation. So along the bottom, if we think about physiology, I wonder how our
Before we
body
even get to the
looks.
bottom,
Sure.
I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, okay, so applying this to my valley that I've been in. And
Okay.
what's interesting for me is it's easy to give you the words for the state that I have been in.
Which
The
would be what? Mm-hmm.
self-doubt,
Yeah,
despair,
despair.
um, sadness, I suppose. There's been, a
Yeah,
bit of
okay.
sadness. Um, there's been anger.
Yeah,
So and it's easier right now when I'm in it to recognize that language. And
sure.
it's quite challenging to go, oh, considering the circumstances as they
Mm,
are and the valley as it is and the reality of this place,
sure.
like how does one want to be? And e like even that, like my brain's doing a
Okay.
So
Mm.
this is
I
interesting.
wonder how it
How
wants to be. Mm.
yes, yeah. So I'm just thought I'd share that it's, my brain immediately went to, oh, well, what's the opposite of despair? And I suppose it's hope.
Hmm.
And the language around hope, and what's the
Hmm.
opposite of self-doubt. And that's an interesting one because I suppose in different scenarios the opposite of self-doubt could be different. There could be different words for that.
Hmm.
So it's like it could be confidence, but I'm thinking, well, for me right now that's not actually
Hmm.
the right word.
Right.
So yeah, just sharing, like it's a challenge sometimes to
It
even
is a
find that
challenge.
language, which in itself is a interesting insight to have. Like, oh, okay, this is interesting because
Yeah.
this might take a little bit of reflection to figure out
Yeah.
what I want that state to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, you carry
No,
on.
no, no. I love that you shared that because you're exactly right. Sometimes we can't see. What's that saying? You can't see what's that forest saying?
Yeah, you can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah. And sometimes, like, we can't, if we're in somewhere and we're in that
Mm.
moment and in a space. So, how do you think you would reflect and find the language?
So that's why I find coaching so helpful, because quite often
Yeah.
in a conversation with somebody else,
Agreed.
and you've
Mm.
got somebody listening and they're giving you the opportunity to figure it out.
Speak it
And
out.
so you kind of have this forwards backwards conversation and you try and work it
Mm.
out.
Agreed.
Another way, I suppose, is to, reflective journaling, and maybe
Mm.
just to journal some words that come to mind, and
Yes.
then um, play around with a few words and experiment with
Mm.
what feels right. Another thing that I found that has been helpful, and now that you asked that question, is there's this emotions wheel that I think we have. Do you remember that
Oh,
emotions
we
wheel?
may have,
I think we've shared it
yes.
before in one of
We
the
may have
podcasts.
shared it.
Yeah, yeah. But there's this, if you Google the Wheel of
Emotion.
Emotion,
Yeah.
there's this visual that will come up, an image with
Mm.
a wheel that's got a whole lot of different words for the different emotions we can feel. Because quite often our emotional vocabulary is not actually that broad. And so that's sometimes helpful to go through that wheel and to um
Articulate it. Mm.
articulate and notice which words jump out that feel like, oh, yes, that's how I want to be
Mm.
when I'm facing this current challenge. So that's
Mm.
helpful.
And I want to sit here for a moment because I love that you brought out having a conversation or journaling and writing down because the danger we have in this space when we are feeling despair, when we are feeling, self-doubt and all of those things is to have the same words looping in our mind and to just sit
Oh,
in it. And if we're
hello
just
to my
thinking it and
past week.
thinking it, yeah,
Yeah,
until it's spoken and we hear what we're speaking, it shifts everything. So I love that you brought that out to help us articulate. Oh, if this is where we're at, but we want something different, what could that be? Conversation is a perfect way to start. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so back to our triad. So if we've got an idea right in the middle, what do we want our overflow to look like? What do we want squeezed out of us? How do we want it to be? So we've done all of that exploring. We've
Mm.
chatted with a friend. We've reflected. Now at the bottom is physiology. So physically speaking, what does that look like? So if we want a different overflow, so, say for example, say we did write confidence. You said that word before, said it wasn't really
Mm.
what you needed now, but I'll just use that now. If we want confidence, I wonder what that means to us and how it causes us to look.
Well,
What do we
I'm
do
just
with our
thinking,
face?
like
Mm,
self-doubt, if I'm sitting in self-doubt and despair,
mm.
the body language around that is yeah, exactly. Like, if you're
Stoop,
watching on
slump,
YouTube, you can see
eye
you stoop,
down.
you slumped. Yeah, yeah.
I'm still smiling
And
because,
and you kind of like, even the feeling on the inside is tight and it's closed in.
yeah.
Whereas if I'm feeling a sense of hope and confidence,
Mm,
immediately I kind of want to sit a bit taller, relax my shoulders back, Um,
Bit of eye
my gut
contact.
loosens, it feels
Mm.
less tight, it feels more open.
Mm.
And there's a leaning inwards also happening, like, oh, there's
Yeah.
hope here. Like, let me lean into that,
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. And it might be that there is a bit of a smile on the face. So it's helpful with that part for us to consider not necessarily not how we're currently feeling, but how we want what our body will need to do in order to help us to feel or experience the overflow that we're hoping for.
Yeah, no, that
So
makes
what
complete
needs to
sense.
shift?
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to either pile it on, imagine it for a moment, but sometimes our mind's eye is pretty clever. Like if we can picture, remember way back at the beginning of this year, I shared how when I was trying to work out how to respond as a mum, I pictured my friend.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this is kind of the same thing for a moment. Okay, well, what do I want it to look? How would that look? What resonates with me? What does my body need to do to experience that state? And so that's the physiology. And then if we look on one of the sides, it doesn't matter which one, the one that's focus. And we spoke a bit about this, I think, last week. Where's my focus?
mm,
So if we have in the middle of our triad wanting to have hope and confidence, where must our focus be? So it's interesting. I like what you did before. You compared, well, where's it now?
yeah,
So where's our focus when we're feeling despair and self-doubt and sadness? Where's that focus? But where do we actually need our focus to be to help us experience the state of overflow that we want to experience in this situation?
yeah,
And so it's considering, okay, well, where must my focus be?
yeah. And it's totally, well, definitely it's different. So there's definitely a shift in focus.
Mm,
And I think for all of us listening, that might be different, but it will be different,
mm,
So it's focusing on uh, the possibilities,
yeah.
and I like
The
what you said
things.
earlier. What else is true? There are
Yeah.
other things that are also true about the
Hmm.
circumstance, and even
What is in
focusing
our
towards,
control?
yeah. Oh, love that one. Love that
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Hmm.
And all of this, like you sharing now, is the stuff that's in our control, right? It's the
Hmm.
languaging we want to focus
But what
on.
do we
It's
often
the,
focus on when we're in self-doubt and all of those things? Are we often focusing
oh,
on what's on our in our control?
no, we're so often focusing on all the externals that are completely not in our control.
Mm,
So this is hugely helpful. It's very, very empowering. I can even
mm,
feel my status shifted, like, just talking about this. So, this
mm.
is, yes. And the third one. So the first was physiology. The
Yeah,
next one was focus. And then what was the third one?
it was language. So the language that
Okay.
we need to use to experience that state. So if we're using the language of this is too hard, this is such a struggle, I can't do this any longer, I hate this, I'm overwhelmed. Those are the kind of, if we're using that language internally and externally, or sometimes just internally, whatever it is, if those are the words that take up most of our time, it would be nearly impossible to have a state of hope and confidence. And, so we have to have our language to match. So I think it's really important here to capture, okay, well, what must I be saying to myself? What must I be speaking out loud, e- even to others, that will help me to have that state of overflow that I'm looking for? And I've got, so to be a little bit vulnerable here as well. When I did this, and it's funny, I remember that I've done these little triads as for being a mum. Okay, how do I want to show up as a mum? So I didn't know the word overflow. When I did these triads years ago in my life, you and I, Kath, hadn't spoken about, living authentically and in a state of
Yes.
overflow. But I remember doing these triads as a, what did I want as a mum? How did I want to show up as a mum? How did I want to show up, you know, as a coach? So I did this right back at the beginning of coaching. Okay, how did I want to show up as a coach? I remember doing it just in life. How do I just want to show up? Like, what do I want to? And I remember pulling it apart. And so then from that point, anytime I started to have language to myself or out loud to anybody else, that like it started to stand out to me when my language didn't align with the state and the that I wanted.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
think it's an
I mean,
awareness
that in
piece.
itself is just such a powerful question. I mean, the start of this whole tool, I think, is the crux of it all. It's how do I want to be?
Yeah.
And that is a question that we do have full choice and control over. How
Yeah.
do we want to be? It doesn't mean it's easy,
No.
especially in the valley when you're asking this question from a place of sitting in despair and doubt and
Mm,
challenge and concern and worry and all those things. As you say, we closed off, we're not creative. But even to ask that question, okay,
mm,
so if I could be different now,
mm,
what do I want that to look like? How do I want that to be?
mm.
Gosh, that's such an empowering question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even just to realize that, oh, we talk about all the time, Kath, that there is a choice. And to
Mm.
even in that moment to realize, oh, I have a choice to be another way than I'm being right now. I don't like what I'm being right now. Don't like
Yeah.
how I'm showing up. Don't like the
Yeah.
thoughts that I'm telling myself. Don't like physically the state that I'm in. To realize for a moment that there is another way of being that might not yet be our authentic self in that space. But what we also know about life is we're ever evolving, we're ever growing, we're ever changing. If we were perfectly who we were supposed to be from the get go, what would be the point? Like we're going through this journey of life,
Yeah.
becoming. We're becoming who we
Yes.
are, and we don't have to change. You could sit in your space and be in despair and feel though all of those feels, but I know you and I know your character and your desire is to be all you've been created to be. And we know that this state isn't a resourceful state. So what are we going to do about it basically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also the encouragement that some seasons it's easier to, it's not that difficult. So some seasons you can
Mm,
kind of catch it early and change it around. And yet for me, I mean, this has been such a gift having this conversation with you today
mm,
because I think um there are seasons where we really do uh, need those other people in our world that can help
mm.
us to shift the
Yeah.
state. And it's
Yeah.
do we have people in our world that, when you share where you are, aren't going to join you in the pity party?
Which is all right for a little bit of time
Yeah, but
sometimes.
yes, but
Mm,
they might pop in, but then they extending their arm to go, hey, would you like help to be pulled out of
mm,
this place? Like, what can we do
mm,
to help get you out of here?
mm,
And yeah, so helpful.
mm.
So thank you. This has been a really enlightening, and I mean, it's nothing new. It's not, I
I
don't
know.
like, it's not that I don't know any of this stuff, but such a helpful visual to have that
Mm,
triangle to go, hang on a minute, okay, where do I start again? Yep, it's
mm,
how do I want to be? So what is
mm,
my body doing? How do I be that?
mm.
What am I focusing on? And language automatically kind of changes,
Yeah,
doesn't it? When
it
you're,
does.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it does. If we start with physiology, the language often does, but also if we start with language, if we're
yeah.
someone who's that language stands out to, and we make a couple of small changes with our language, sometimes we just stand a bit taller as well.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
One thing too that stands out, and I think it's worth quickly mentioning, is that this isn't uh, this isn't changing the circumstances. Often in life, we've got circumstances that we need to journey through.
Yeah.
It's all about, it's not ignoring the circumstances. It's not being sort of inauthentic and just trying to be look like we're managing things well to get through it. It's about, okay, well, how do I want to navigate the circumstances when we can't change them and we've recognized that the squeeze, the overflow isn't what we're happy with.
Mm,
When we recognize that, and it is about then, because once more often than not, when we have the state and the mindset and we're able to see it for what it is, it helps us navigate that season, that set of circumstances or whatever it is we're going through on a whole different level.
so
Does that
good.
make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. No, I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying. So we're not trying to pretend it's not there. We're not
Yeah.
trying to, yeah. So you're acknowledging the difficult valley.
Mm. Mm.
However, you are actually navigating it in a way that brings hope and light,
Mm.
and you know that you'll get through it. So
Mm.
very, very helpful. Thanks, Al.
My pleasure. So I'm going to do my best over this week to draw up some sort of triad and create it so that it, it might be in the show notes. I'll see what I can create on the computer.
Beautiful, thank you. And it's
Yeah.
definitely given me, it's great because it's
Good.
given me somewhere to go to, when you're sitting in the looping, it's so
In
easy
the
to sitting
looping.
in the loop to kind of go, well, I don't even know how to get out of this loop. Well, actually, you've given us a way out. So hugely helpful.
Good.
Thank
Love
you
it.
very much.
As always, love chatting with you, and I can't wait to do it all again next time.
See you. Cheers.